All right, quickly sit down. We need to talk about the state of Overwatch 5v5, 6v6, and the decision that Overwatch needs to make for the future. I'm going to do one more final follow-up to this video because this is just my thoughts on 5v5 and 6v6 and what I think the game needs to do. After this, I'm going to talk about it from a little bit more of a business perspective. For those of you that don't know, I have a master's degree in, basically business, by business administration. I've specialized in different fields over the past few years, and now soon enough, hopefully, I'll be pursuing my PhD. Well, the domain is still left to be decided because I'm looking at my situation and we'll go from there. But aside of that, I'm going to talk about it a little bit from a business and marketing perspective, what Overwatch needs to do, because public perception for Overwatch is literally down the gutter right now. That is another topic for the next video. Right now, we need to look at it from the gameplay perspective. Now, when I made the last video that I made where I talked about Overwatch Stadium and the problems that it might face, I said one of the problems that Overwatch might genuinely run into is that it is going to have too many playlists or too many different queues. We're going to have Overwatch 5v5, 5v5 ranked, we're going to have 6v6 quick play, then 6v6 ranked, then we're going to have stadium, and then 6v6 ranked, and then assuming that there's no arcade modes or some garbage like that running on the side, then there's going to be even more queues happening if the arcade modes are present. So the queues, this is not good right now in the world of business, in the world of, I guess, gaming, esport gaming. I don't know how you want to categorize it. Everybody that is in a service-oriented sector for business is running off the model that they want to please their customers. They want to win over their attention, and that will translate over into goodwill and money. And Overwatch, they've done a lot of good things. The loot boxes came back. They changed the way they were monetizing their heroes. Some bundles have seen price adjustments, and then some scummy practices made the return. Again, deeper dive into this in the next video for the business side of things, for those that aren't aware about it. And when it comes down to it, the final thing that remains for Overwatch where it's a bit indecisive is, truthfully speaking, Overwatch genuinely is the only game that is in this unique problem right now where it doesn't know what it wants to be. Quite literally, it faces an identity crisis. It kind of forced everybody into 5v5 without doing any tests and this and that, and basically gave the community the finger. But now, like, when the 6v6 topic comes up, they are being as careful as possible. Well, are you sure you want 6v6? They also did, like, literally next to no marketing for 6v6 whatsoever, and it still turned out to be a popular game mode. Now, I have tried to look at the upsides and downsides for everything, and this also brings in the role queue and open queue argument, and I think I've maybe come down to a good conclusion on what could be the best for the future of the game. Now, first of all, I want to try and play like thumbs up and thumbs down to both sides. Number one, when it comes down to 5v5, initially when 5v5 came out, I was very on board with it. My videos for it still exist. I'm a very truth to heart kind of guy. I don't go back on my statements. However, with the way 5v5 evolved, I personally, I value philosophy more than anything. If I see a dev or balance team go back on their philosophy and just be hypocrites repeatedly, I can't support that. And that's what I saw with 5v5. The support buffs that came out throughout the seasons, then all of a sudden, like the Giga Tank patch, season 9, this is just not what made Overwatch. It, like, the way the gameplay started to feel, felt even more dragged out, slogged out, and then the saving grace that was the DPS, heal reduction, the passive, passive is the word, the DPS heal passive, heal reduction passive, when that came in, that genuinely saved the way the game was being played, because at that point it literally felt like we were in 6v6 again, with just one tank instead of two, and it was an incredibly frustrating time. I hope people don't forget how bad it was when the DPS couldn't reduce the healing in the game. Now, 5v5's strength was that initially it offered a lot more pop-off potential. Initially, it offered a lot more domain to make plays for almost everybody involved. However, with the constant adding of passives and the constant shoehorning of different mechanics in the game and free value in some cases, and now perks coming in, I don't see 5v5 being like the vision that I believed in that it was back in the day, right? It certainly has its ups and downs. Even now, I guess you could say you have just a tiny bit more individual agency than you would in 6v6, maybe. But I will say the core gameplay experience has been completely nullified from the perspective of the different mechanics and systems put into place to make it almost feel like that this is 6v6, but with one Giga Tank. Realistically speaking, the biggest reason I hate, or really dislike, hate's a strong word, really dislike the state of 5v5 is Giga Tank ruins it for me. Giga Tank almost feels like you are facing three players worth of cooldown rotations and HP bar, and like if that person gets the opening pick, the amount of momentum one tank can have and just control and server admin the lobby is just not fun to play into. I found myself less and less playing Overwatch, and I can't believe I'm about to say this. I was about to lose my love for the game. I've been very much into Marvel Rivals. You guys have been checking out the streams. Thank you so much. One later tonight. But then they released OpenQ 6v6, and now to be fair, even though there's some comps that are like rising and dropping with 6v6, there's even the rise of triple support in Overwatch. I think what is definitely a key standout was the game. Funnily enough, with all the systems and everything that went into 5v5, quality of life changes, systems, different mechanisms, how they like rework some of the heroes, unironically, it started to mesh into the 6v6 OpenQ patch very well, surprisingly. Not to mention, I think this is something that deserves a very well acknowledgement, is there has not been a proper full-on rework patch for the 6v6 OpenQ. It's literally, they've taken their OpenQ patch from 5v5 and just like slapped another player on it and said, okay, surely this works, right? And I'm not going to lie. I am really disappointed in the dev team that they did not properly give 6v6 the resources. And I think like any content creator or anybody that said that maybe there's a chance that they are trying to make 6v6 fail, I can't help but believe that, because this game mode did not have any marketing. It did not get any proper balance patch. Even till now, it did not get any realistic proper balance patch addressing whatever is meta. Although I don't think there's any proper meta figured out in 6v6 just yet. And there's like a different variety of things that I can say. However, in my opinion, in my experience, what's happening in 6v6 that isn't happening in 5v5 is unironically what they were initially wanting with 5v5 that came out with 5v5's release is actually now applying to 6v6. People are able to pop off more. In a weird way, supports that really fell in love with the old support playstyle where they like, because there is a support crowd that's very 50-50 on this. There's a certain amount of support players that are like, no, well, we want to be supports that actually support our team. And then there's a group of support players that are like, well, we want to be like, we want to support our team, but we also kind of want to do more. And I think as the 6v6 OpenQ evolves, and hopefully the Blizzard balance team blesses us with a proper balance patch for this thing, I think there's a window where supports are actually not that bad, and you can still do a lot of the stuff that you're doing with them in 5v5. And I actually really don't like one of the arguments that being made that no, you don't get like, so supports, like they have to primarily support the team and they can't just take an angle and do whatever they want. Let me just ask you one thing. Why is that a bad thing? That is the role doing its job, right? It's a specific job specific to that role that the other roles cannot do, right? Tank can damage and do some things, right? Damage can, sometimes create space and stuff with their ultimates and create pressure in their own cycles. Support can't really do that, and they're the only unique role that is literally designed to support their team. So while yes, they still have windows to make their plays and everything, and perhaps it's a little bit smaller compared to 5v5, I think a good support player knows how to take advantage of that window and pop up from there. When I was playing in my 6v6 matches now and on the account that I'm playing, the higher up I go in the lobbies, and when I don't mind like playing some support, because you guys know I actually really enjoy playing support, there's a lot of times where I feel like, man, I feel like I could do more here. Like the second tank really makes a big difference. I get the extra peel. I can actually get like go for a little bit more silly plays and help set up the team. Like that extra 6th player makes a really big difference in the grand scheme of things. And more or less from what I'm seeing, most of the comps that are being played is pretty much 2-2-2. There's no denying it. It's 2 tanks, 2 DPS, 2 support. And the funny thing is, I'm actually gonna outright say it. Unironically, you actually don't need 2-2-2 to win in this game. Realistically, like there was a game where I played with 1 tank, 3 DPS, and 2 supports. I think no matter the hero shooter that you like to play, whether it's Marvel Rivals or Overwatch, I think you will always need 2 supports. And then after that, if people are mechanically gifted on the characters that they are playing in compositions like 1-3-2, let's say your 1 tank is a Sigma who knows how to like take care of himself, is mechanically good, can land the shots and can enable his DPS, and then like his supporting DPS are, let's say, Widowmaker, Hanzo, and Ashe like on Circuit Royale. Isn't that actually a really damn good comp? That's actually a really damn good comp, right? So like if he's enabling those 3 and they're like popping off like crazy, and of course this is where mechanics come in because all 3 of these characters are mechanically intensive, then that comp is actually pretty damn successful. So is the answer like 6v6 like 2-2-2 role queue? And I think with role queue you get the queue time problems. Now I did say that I don't want to dig into the queue time problems, but the more I've kind of revisited OpenQ in Marvel Rivals, the more I've revisited OpenQ in Overwatch. I hate to say it, but I've begun to realize I think OpenQ really is the way. And there's been moments where I've had this in Marvel Rivals as well, and I had it with Overwatch this morning as well, where somebody just didn't feel comfortable on tank, and I just said like, hey man, like, what's the matter? Like, you're not doing well. Like, what can I do to help you? Like, at the time I was playing support. He's like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm actually a 𝐒𝐒𝐂𝐈𝐶 player, and I don't really play tank. And I was like, yo, why don't you just take 𝐒𝐒𝐂𝐈𝐶 from me and let me come over to the tank role? Because, you know, I can play all three roles. Let me take my hand at this, and you can go relax on 𝐒𝐒𝐂𝐈𝐶, and I can take the pressure over here. I don't mind. I really enjoy playing tank. We swapped roles. He had a good time. I had a good time. We actually ended up winning that match. It took a bit. It was quite a bit of a fight. We had to get back a lot of momentum, but we won. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that a potential GOATS comp couldn't come in the future and this and that. But I think with the way Overwatch 2 has been handling passive systems, you can actually implement those passive systems into current like OpenQ 6v6 Overwatch and actually refine it to be good. For example, let's say triple support happens someday in the future. Well, you don't necessarily need to create a character or a comp or some form of something that like completely shits on triple support. You can create an in-game mechanic or system or passive where if you have picked 3 supports, right? Granted that this limits the like this kind of defeats the purpose, but you are gonna have to do this if you want to balance it out, because they kind of did this for 5v5, and if we're gonna be consistent with the logic here, like why does 5v5 get passives to deal with problems but 6v6 can't have it? Come on, that's literally being hypocritical, right? Like, okay, we're okay with having these things over there but not over here. So if there is a problem in the open queue that, oh well, let's say somehow triple support takes over or triple tank takes over, maybe there's like, you know, different types of passives that are debuffs to the comp that can come in to, you know, help negate the overall impact. For example, let's say if you're playing triple support, the passive that has been given to you now is overall like 10-15% healing reduction from the supports. Right, so it's like, okay, if you're trying to force like an ultra sustainy comp, well, the healing numbers on each of the supports now have been reduced by 10%, and then the DPS passive comes in. So if somebody is not playing the triple support comp, they actually have a chance to you know, pierce their way through that healing, and it's not overwhelming. And guys, come on, let's be realistic. The healing in Overwatch is absurd. I am noticing that there is a rise in triple support in OpenQ 6v6. Maybe it's just a pure coincidence about some of the games I played. I have been able to beat it. It's not like the end all be all. I don't think it's meta either. I think it's a funny composition that works against like the 5v5 players that have no clue how to play the game properly. So I think there is a valid point to be made over there that, you know, we could start implementing systems to make OpenQ feel better. I also like the idea about the you know, what they did with tanks, was like you can only have a maximum of 2 tanks. I like this idea as well. And hypothetically, if they couldn't figure out a proper system to tune out the game where, let's say, triple support became dominated, you can now apply this logic into the support role as well. Now, technically, it's limiting freedom and choice in its own unique way, but then I raise the question, why can't they balance the game better? Because like this raises the question that, you know, back in the day when GOATS took over, when Double Shield took over, the community at the time, I was a part of it. There was a lot of people in the Overwatch community that are still here today. We were begging that the #1 source that of sustain being so strong is exactly that: sustained healing, AoE healing. If it gets a nerf, the game is going to be good. There was a golden time, the October 2020 patch, where this was the case, where for the first time Brig and BAP, they were the, you know, main players back then, they got their rightful nerfs, and once they took their rightful nerfs, the game became the most fun to play. 𝐒𝐒𝐈 made the most iconic video in Overwatch after making the second most iconic video in Overwatch, where it was the first ever state of Overwatch with the arrow going down, and then he made a follow-up where the arrow went up. And the consensus in the community at the time was, wow, the game feels really good to play. And in my opinion, this is what Overwatch needs the most right now. It needs to feel good to play. That is a priority. I don't think Overwatch is going to ever win the race in terms of attention seeking when it comes to like competing with its competitors. They are going to be dwarfed by Marvel Rivals in the near future. That is like, if you believe otherwise, you are actually delusional. If we're trying to help Overwatch become the better game, we need to help isolate, you know, where can Overwatch become better. And the way I see it, I think 5v5 is a lost cause of ideas and balanced design decisions and everything, where it's being thrown left and right, left and right, left and right. They're taking niche characters and trying to generalize them, completely killing what made them unique in the first place. It's clear that some of these characters were made with 6v6 and their maps and their game modes in mind, and when you play them in those positions, it just feels right. That's what I've been feeling. When I return to 6v6, I feel like, damn, this feels right, especially when you play that 2-2-2. Even if you play a variation of 1-3-2 or something, you need at least 2 supports. I can't deny that, right? it just feels right. For some reason, that 6 number, it was something that Jeff Kaplan and his team said back in the day, where they were like, guys, we tried 7v7, it was too much. We tried 5v5, it just didn't feel right, and it was too chaotic, and it was too here and there. But when we came down to 6v6, that is where things felt good. Guys, remember, please be honest with yourselves as we end this video. How many passive systems, mechanic changes, gameplay this, gameplay that, did we need to do for 5v5 to work? To anybody who was a part of the Overwatch golden era of year 1 to year 3 and 4, we never had to do this. We could easily figure out with balance, and the only thing we didn't have back in the day was the balance team was too stubborn to actually act and balance the game. This balance team is not that bad. I do have my gripes with them, and I do think they're hypocritical with certain things, and I wish they wouldn't be that way, but it is what it is. However, I do think that they're much more faster in terms of acting with the game and actually wanting to make it feel better, because right now it's not that bad. And even in my possible opinion, the worst version of 6v6 that we could have gotten, open queue, and soon we'll get hero bans. I think 6v6, open queue, hero bans is the format that Overwatch needs to decide upon, needs to lock in, and now go forward. It'll be a great relearning experience for a lot of people. Right now, anybody that's playing the 6v6 mode will understand that if you have a remote idea, whether you're playing tank, DPS, or support, on how to actually play your role, and you've not been spoon-fed different passives and armor changes and this and that to basically serve admin the game, you're actually going to steamroll lobbies. I've been playing all 3 roles almost equally with a little bit more DPS because I really miss playing Genji in this type of way. I can play so aggressive on the Genji. Pharah feels so right in this mode. Like, there's so much shit that feels so good in 6v6. And again, you know, this is possibly the worst version of 6v6 we've ever gotten, and it is still 10 times more fun than 5v5. And right now, that's what Overwatch needs. It needs fun. It needs to slowly build that player base back. And like I said, I'm going to talk about the marketing side of this and everything in tomorrow's video, because I'm going to have to do a very big deep dive in trying to make people understand certain concepts and strategies that businesses do. And for Overwatch to succeed, it's going to have to start locking in. And the first thing, the starting point as we end this video, is Overwatch has to decide on one format. It cannot do this anymore. It cannot try to please everybody, because you're going to piss off the 5v5ers at some point and they'll leave for some other game. You're going to piss off the 6v6ers at some point. They're going to leave for another game. You're going to piss off the stadiumers and they're going to leave for another game. And what happens then? You end up in the same problem that we had at the end of Overwatch 1, which was at that point, it was just a group of really dedicated players that didn't enjoy any other game, that were so lost in Overwatch that they refused to play any other game, and that's the community you're going to be left with. And is that really going to be the community that carries the game forward and help it evolve further in terms of finance, in terms of marketing, in terms of like global outreach? Or do you want to seriously narrow down on your gameplay, decide that, okay, no, this was the right way to go, put our ego aside, let's go forward? Also, just drop the 2 from the name, it's pointless. Anyways, everybody, this was a long yap session. Terribly sorry if I wasted your time and bored you to death. However, if you did enjoy it, as always, you can support the channel by hitting like and subscribe. Tomorrow's video, be sure to stick around. We will be talking about what Overwatch needs to do to become a success once again.